If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to Dan Campbell's press conference today, I wanted to create a little bit of a montage video, give you a little bit of an update, and bring in Dan Campbell in his press conference today on a few important keys, I believe, for this weekend's game. One, Dan didn't mince words about the Bears and what they bring to the table, and certainly Justin Fields and how he's been able to kind of carve up defenses lately. No matter what any team is doing and how they're trying to shut him down, that he's still finding lanes to get through the defensive line and create, havoc, get yards and keep the plays, sprinting forward to first downs. Or keep the team sprinting forward to first downs, I should say. But more importantly, Dan was asked about Bruce Irvin this morning and, how was Bruce's effect on this team and what should we expect to see? Dan Campbell said that he wanted to work Irvin in more, that was the plan. And based on his performance in this first game, he only had 11 snaps. To kind of see how Irvin bounced back and, what his recovery was going to be like after the game, how he felt, and kind of take it as a wait and see approach and see how he responded, see how Irvin responded, to see how much more they're going to be able to work him in game 2 versus the Bears. But I think we can all agree that, Irvin did provide a bright spot for this defensive line. He, again, he was in for 11 snaps. And he really provided, that extra push that we were looking for right off the get-go. We haven't seen this type of production or this type of energy in about 5 weeks. Hutch has been doing his thing. He's always getting pressure. But is it the right kind of pressure? Is it really leading to game-changing moments? And that's the questions that all of us are still trying to answer. Like, where are we missing, on this defensive line? What are we missing? What's going to make that big difference for this team? And quite honestly, after adding Alualu, this is, another benefit to this D line. And it could be another key piece that helps kind of unlock this chain, if you will, that the D line has kind of been wrapped around. From a veteran perspective, adding a teacher and someone that's, done it at a high level for many seasons. And again, I said the other day in a video that his stats do not jump off at the page. He averaged, 2-3 sacks a season, but he was a constant monster in the middle of the D line and creating havoc for offensive lines and, owning up to his gaps and his gap responsibility and was always in the right place at the right time and helping to create plays for others. And that's really what you look at, for some players on your team. They're not going to be stat guys. Like John Kaminsky is not a stat guy. He is someone that is a producer. He is someone that is going to help push the pile, push the pocket, collapse an edge, and force the ball to where, they don't want it to go. But he's also someone that's a very heady player. He's a smart player. He knows where to be, when to be somewhere. And that all helps to relate to production on the field. It doesn't matter who's getting the sack. It doesn't matter who's getting the TFL. It just matters that somebody is. We haven't seen that. We just haven't seen those stats accumulate the last 5 weeks like they should have, based on the amount of pressure that we're getting. If you're getting top end pressure in the league and you're not seeing the production come away from it, there's a problem. Something's missing. So you've now added Bruce Irvin, who was one of the best to do it in the prime of his career. You've now added Alualu, who was probably one of the most consistent to do it throughout his, 10-year career or so with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But he's offering, as a mentorship to some of these younger guys, like I said, a guy that's a teacher, someone that's done it for a high, for a long time and at a high level. And what benefit is he going to give the other guys on the team and what they can learn from his technique, his practice style, his preparation, and quite honestly, what he sees out of this scheme and how it can be utilized and, how you can get the best out of the toolbox that you carry into work every day. Each one of these guys has their own specific set of tools, right? And it's how they're going to be able to use these tools to their best benefit to help the team. So let's go to the video right now, Dan Campbell's press conference today, and hear what he had to say about those two things.
Questions?
It was an impactful 11 snaps for Bruce Irvin. I'm curious, does that put you in a position where you want to get him on the field more based on the sample size you saw last week?
Yeah, I think we would like to work him in more, and that was the plan last week, was give him some opportunities and then, see where he's at there, see how he handled it, see how his body is, and then potentially get him some more. So we're looking into that. But yeah, I would say he's earned that.
Well, you heard it from Dan. He's excited to get Irvin some more snaps, and they really felt like that was the plan coming into this. get him up to speed, get his game legs underneath him. And the same for Alulu is, it's about getting back into game shape. And once they get him, acclimated, one, to the scheme and to the defense and what they're trying to do, it's probably going to take a week or two to get him up. I would not expect to see Alulu this weekend, but I could be wrong. But I didn't hear anything out of Dan Campbell today that alluded to the fact that Alulu was going to be in this weekend. But secondly, I want to talk about the balance of the D-line, more specifically, your DTs. Dan was asked about not having a Lee McNeil in, and he's going to be out 4 or 5 weeks, at least 4 weeks. And what that means for this defensive line, what it also means for the players that haven't been playing as much, and who's going to have a better role or a bigger role on this team moving forward. So who plays? Do they change anything as far as the defensive scheme? He kind of answered that it really wouldn't have a huge effect. There's going to be a few things that they change, but then again, that could just be coach speak. What I had mentioned in the other day in a different video is that I would expect now that if they're not going to have this huge presence up front, that now maybe we might see more guys in the box. We might see the 5-4, be a bigger role on this team. And even in a 5-4, we might see more DBs as opposed to linebackers. I would not be surprised at all if we are in more of a dime look or we have 6 DBs on the field at times. But I definitely think that the Lions are probably going to play more 5 DB fronts in this game because, one, you're trying to contain Justin Fields. You want faster guys on the field. 2, if we're lacking in the defensive line and we're not getting the push and we're not able to affect the pocket as much, you've got to make up for it with speed on the back end. And if you're able to cover receivers with more DBs, you're preventing the pass as well. So I'm expecting to see it. We'll see. I'm not always right, but that's what I would do. I guess we'll see what AG and Dan put together this week and what kind of plan they put together. It's a short week for them, missing a big piece like that and having to kind of retool everything. But again, when Dan was asked about Aleem and who plays, I found it kind of interesting that he mentioned Bohanna, right? He mentioned Benito, and then he mentioned Broderick Martin. Lastly, he mentioned Bugs. And look, they all have a chance to prove, what they can do this week. That's what Dan said. And they have a chance to prove to this team, with this next man up mentality, are they ready? Can they answer the call? But I still found it odd, quite cold, actually, that Bugs was mentioned last. He's been a guy that should have been a starter this whole season. Definitely should have been a number 2 and should have been, not only at the games, but dressed and ready to go and, part of the game day roster. And he hasn't been for more than half the season. You guys know me by now. I key in on body language. I key in on what things are said and how they're said. I key in on mannerisms. And when I see Dan Campbell tapping his hands, when he's talking about Bugs, and just the body language that he gives off, it's almost like he doesn't come across like he's real happy about Bugs, or that he's happy about Bugs might even have to play. Or there again, it didn't even seem like Bugs was still going to play. So very interesting mannerisms by Dan Campbell. And look, this is nothing against Dan. I love the guy. He's a phenomenal coach. I am so happy that he's the head coach of the Detroit Lions. This has nothing to do with Dan. It has everything to do with Bugs. And whatever's going on there, whatever riff is going on in that locker room or between AG and Bugs. I mean, there's been a lot of speculation out there and I couldn't tell you. I mean, it's all unsubstantiated. I couldn't tell you what has happened. If anything has happened. No one has, brought this to light yet. If anything has happened, and we'll probably never know. But let's go to the video now and let's see what Dan had to say about next man up.
So it's next man up. It's a great opportunity. Levi, Broderick, Bohannon, Bugs. I mean, everybody, we're looking at next man up, and these guys are going to get an opportunity to prove their worth here and help us out.
Well, you guys, I mean, maybe now that I said what I said, right? Maybe you guys now seen what I saw, maybe felt what I felt when he was talking about Bugs. But look, be that as it may, I hope Bugs comes in the game if he does get a chance this weekend and completely crushes it. I hope the guy just plays out of his mind. And he probably has so much pent up energy and raw emotion right now that he just might. But that's, left to be seen. What is going to happen this weekend? Who's going to play? Who's going to get the majority of the snaps? Well, Hana's been great. I mean, he's somebody that has filled in nicely and he's done a pretty good job, but these are not elite guys. The 11 snaps we saw to Broderick Martin, that is not an elite player at this moment right now. He's going to need some time to develop. One, he's got to develop his body. He's got to get thinner. He's got to get heavier in the legs. He's got to get quicker off the snap. He's got to get better push off the ball. Those are all things that I saw in the Raiders game. He kind of gets manhandled when he gets up tall. He's got to get low. But we'll see what happens this weekend. This video is really just to kind of recap what Dan said and get your guys' opinion and thoughts really on what do you think the Lions are going to do this weekend? Are we going to be able to control Fields or are we going to be exposed? And that's the one thing that I'm worried about is if Fields goes off for a couple 100 yards like he's done to us in the past. I mean, almost 200 yards last season in one game. That's not going to be a good day for us. I'm not too worried about their run game outside of Fields. I am worried about Fields. And the minute he gets going, it opens up the pass game. You know, once your DBs start to bite down on Fields, Brown's going to be open. Somebody's going to be open. And that's not what I'm looking forward to this weekend. We can't afford a loss right now. All right, so next video that I'm going to be putting out this afternoon is we're going to be talking about playoffs. We're going to be looking at the teams that we have yet to face and look around the league and see how each win and each loss has potential opportunity for the Lions to move up and move down. Right now, the Lions are firmly in the 3rd seed, and they have an opportunity to move up to the 2nd seed. I think the 1st seed is just a little bit out of our grasp. But let's talk about it. We'll have some fun with it this afternoon. I appreciate you guys taking the time to subscribe to this channel. And if you haven't yet, take a look down below. And if you haven't subscribed, come on in. We're trying to get to 3,500 subscribers before the end of the month. It'd be a great Christmas gift to Rock Down Detroit Lions. Help us get there. We appreciate y'all being the best sponsors and supporters of this channel. And until next time, go Detroit Lions, go One Pride, and we'll see you next time. Please take care of yourself. Bye-bye.